Hey everybody, it's Anthony Epps here. I have a video today. I want to show you how to color grade with the tone curve as opposed to using the color grading module in Lightroom. I prefer using the tone curve because it gives me very precise control. I like mixing up two color channels at the same time in combination with controlling my contrast with the luminance curve. And I just want to show you some of the techniques I use to achieve some of the colors that I do. This works best with a black and white image. This is more like a bichromatic type of look, okay? In this image, you can see I didn't use a S-curve here. I just moved the minimum black and the minimum white over to create more contrast by kind of compressing the tones in the image. I've turned on the clipping, right? So I can see what I'm doing here. So I can see what my maximum and minimum are, right? So as I slide this over and I go over the histogram that's underneath the curve here, I start to get clipping in my blacks. But I'm okay with that because what I can do is I can hold down Alt, which makes the node move slowly, and Shift, which holds it at that tonal value, and I'll just slide it straight up until I no longer see or will no longer have any clipping, right? And I'm going to do the same thing for the white. I'm going to drag this over until I start to see clipping right about here. Interesting how the black clipped when I was moving the white. I'm not sure why that happened, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it right about there and then hold Alt and Shift and bring it straight down until I get that out, right? I might even bring that a bit lower actually, because interesting, that black. I think I have to go back here and move the black up again. There we go. And that is, that is a nice way to compress the image, right? So here is before and here is after. I'm not really happy with these clouds there. It looks like I'm losing some detail. Yeah, so I'm going to bring that back a little bit this way. And then bring that straight down. Something like that, yeah? And that looks nicer to me than before. Now, the next thing I did was go to the red cyan. I decided I want a bit of red in the highlights, as you can see here. So I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nodes on there and just raised this 1, 2, 3, this fourth node up into right above the midtones into the highlights, and then just raise that up a little bit. You want to make sure you don't get any kind of color, some kind of like, what do you call it? Some bad gradations, right? So if I raise that up, you can see that I am just doing mostly the highlights and the dark stuff, the darker tones beneath it. You can see if I raise this up too much, I start to get real separation of color there. And I don't want. I got the blues in my highlights, and these mid tones or these lower highlights are red, but then the dark tones don't pick up any of that. So I get this really kind of stark gradation, and I don't want that. I just want it to be something like, if we go back to the line there, right about there. Just lift it up a little bit, and that looks pretty good. Yeah, I'll be happy with that. And if you do have a problem with that getting a bit, that color separation too much, you can go to the next node and raise that up a little bit into the reds. And the reason we had so many nodes there is because the other nodes will lock it in place. Yeah, if you only have one node or 3 nodes, and then you pull one down, the other side goes up, which I can demonstrate that here, right? So if I lock a node there and I bring this down, you can see the other one goes up, right? So that's why we add a bunch of nodes here, so we can control just very small portions of the image. And then I didn't do any blue here. I brought up the reds and the shadows just a tiny bit, but I left the shadows to neutral, right? It didn't really affect those. And you can see the top node here. I'm also showing my clipping and leaving that there, right? But I wanted a little bit more yellow in the midtones here, so a yellow kind of red look. And so I added point here and one here directly in the middle. And I'm just going to drag that straight down, holding down Alt and Shift. I'm going to drag that straight down into the yellow. Now, it's looking like a bit much now, so if I zoom in here, I can see I've got a bit of separation there. I don't want that, so I'm going to go back a little bit. Let's see. Too much. And right about there. Yeah, so it's just a little dip in the yellow. It looks like I'm going to have to grab another node, probably this one here. Let me lock that there. And I'm going to move this down a little bit. I'm holding down Alt now. I'm going to move that down just a little bit. All right, so here's before and after. So I get a lot of black in there. I get a lot of nice kind of color grading. Those beautiful clouds with, you know, and everything is nice and smooth. I can do a little bit more work in here. I think I'm going to resolve that now by, I'm not sure where that is. Too much blue. I think I'm going to just raise this up a little bit. I'll just make that neutral again. And got the heads right there. And yeah, I think that's good. I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to leave this here. I think that's pretty good. It's like a red and yellow combination in the midtones and highlights. And then in the shadows, just a bit of blue. Yeah. And that looks pretty good. Probably work on it some more, but I'm going to move on to the next image. And this is one I did in Hanoi. This is straight out of camera. Let's start with the luminance curve. I had issues with the highlights, so I dragged it over. Hold Alt and Shift and bring that down until my highlights are no longer clipping. I added a lot of clarity, positive clarity and negative dehaze. And what this does, I'll show you, if you add a lot of clarity, you know, clarity is contrast in the midtones. I don't have a lot of midtones here, right? But if I drag the dehaze slider over quite dramatically, I start to get, you look at the histogram, I start to get something in the midtones, right? So when I add the clarity, it has more effect, right? And I start to get this very kind of nice glow to it. I'm not concerned about contrast. It's just, I like that feeling of it, right? Shooting through the glass, you get a lot of that texture there, and it looks kind of cool. Let's go to the tone curve. I left this a little bit. I'll do my clipping, and I had some clipping in the shadows, but I took it out there, and I wanted to get a black here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to raise that up a little bit until my clipping is no longer clipping, like so. And that kind of lends itself to the kind of haziness that the dehaze puts into the image when you go minus dehaze. And then for the color, I just added, you know, I put my nodes, 1, 2, 3, 4 nodes, and just lifted up the midtone a bit in the red, like so, and then went to the blue, and then I did 1, 2, 3 nodes, and then the first node here at the bottom in the shadows, I lifted up a little bit, just a tiny bit. You can see I start to get some bad kind of blending there when you do it too much, so it is really subtle, and I highly recommend you use the Alt key to move it real slowly. Right, I'm looking at this guy's cheek here, and you know, if I raise it too much, it starts to get a bit blotchy and colory. bad gradation. So it's more like, so input is 54, holding it down, and just, it's a tint, it's a very slight tint. Let me drag that up. And let's look at the before and after. Yeah, it's a nice effect. I mean, and it is an effect, it's not something I would do to a normal color image. If I had done all this adjustments to a normal color image, it might be kind of look really overdone and not so nice, but it works well in black and white. I hope you found something helpful in this video, some kind of, something to stir your creativity and give you, the motivation or the inspiration to experiment using the tone curve, because it's a very powerful tool. This is, a nice color effect, and it works on monochromatic, black and white images very well. And it gives you really fine control over your blending of color. You can also get really fine control over the color grading tool, but if you want to learn about the tone curve, then hopefully this video will show you a couple tricks to add to your arsenal when you're using the tone curve. And if you found something useful in this video and you liked it, leave a comment. I would love to hear what you think. Yeah, and also give it a like so I keep making more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.